Well, welcome to a very special edition of our Ask Antar series. This time, we are not in the city of Jackson. We are actually in Atlanta. And Mayor, of course, thank you so much for joining us. So I want to ask a question. This is off of this list, and it's one that I don't know that we've ever discussed before. Okay. So if you were governor, would you want to create new programs to address particular issues, or do you think your role would be to more manage those programs efficiently and effectively?
Well, first, let me begin by saying that I have no intentions of throwing my hat into the ring. But I think that it doesn't have to be an either or, but a both and proposition. I think that there are state-funded programs that need to be maintained and operated more efficiently, in my perspective. But I think that we are in need of more programs. We are in need of more solutions for the people in the greatest need for those. I think that we have a lot to do in the vein of mental health. I think that we have to understand that issues like homelessness is not a Jackson issue. It's a regional issue, and communities across our city deal with those challenges. And I'd like to see a more sufficient or more adequate programming and funding to those challenges. We live in the poorest state, yet we have one of the highest levels of denial for people seeking resources that support them through the challenges of poverty. And so I think that we have a real opportunity to not only fix the challenges that Mississippians face, but to model to the rest of the nation that if Mississippi, a state that is often looked at as being, the lowest ranking in some of the worst categories, if we can overcome our challenges, then what does that say for the rest of the nation?
All right. Well, that sounds like a good place to stop. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. So we're sticking with these questions that we got emailed in. And some of these are tougher than others, so I'm glad you're answering them and not me. Here's a question. Do you think there's too much bureaucracy and not enough democracy in city government?
Well, I think that because we're making such critical decisions that often impact people's lives, that we should have an appropriate amount of consideration of what we're doing. However, I am a naturally impatient person. And when people are suffering, they want help now. And so I think that government on the city level, on the state level, and the federal level could be far more efficient in how it delivers results to people. And so some of the things that cause delay are things that are intended to ensure fairness and equity in the process. But I do believe that we can find ways to cut through the red tape and get more immediate solutions in hand for people.
Okay. What do you believe contributes to the decline in school enrollment?
Well, I think there are a number of things. I think one, we should recognize that through all of our challenges and the lost population in the state of Mississippi and consequently the lost population in the city of Jackson, that the decline is in part due to the fact that you have fewer residents. Fewer residents mean fewer students. But then also we have to realize that we have new competing factors. One being that we have charter schools, which, in my opinion, one, we haven't been as critical as we need to be in terms of the level of success or lack thereof that they've had. But they often rob the public coffers in order to contribute to, a private mission. And we have to ensure that anybody who has agency over our children's education, that they're delivering the very best quality or the quality education that our children deserve. And so both the decline in population coupled with the new invent of charter schools lead to the drop in enrollment.
What are the top 5 monthly issues or concerns that the mayor's action line receives from the constituency, or what are your monthly top concerns?
Well, I unfortunately, not being prepared for that question,
Right.
I don't have the list at hand. But we know that our residents are always concerned about our road infrastructure, our physical infrastructure, whether that be roads or, on occasion, the water challenges that we've had. Residents are often concerned about public safety issues, and, just dealing with economic development concerns as well. And so we try to be as responsive as we can to those challenges. I think the most important thing that residents have to be aware of is the fact that we don't see things accomplished in the timeline that we would rather them be accomplished is usually, or, dare I say, never on account of a lack of political will, but more often on account of a lack of resources. And so my job and my priority as the mayor of Jackson is identifying how I secure more funds in order to address the challenges that we have.
Okay. What is your viewpoint on the issue of homelessness in the city of Jackson, and how do you propose alleviating or resolving this problem?
Yeah. Well, any solution or any notion that the way we deal with homelessness is to, arrest people out of it or to criminalize poverty is counterintuitive to what we know, and it's reactionary, and it's not the best demonstration of our humanity. And so the only way that you address homelessness is to have sufficient services that get to the root causes of what led someone into the state of being unhoused. One of the things that we're trying to do is, one, we've lifted up, we've nominated this as an important issue in our city. Not only from the standpoint of what we need to do as a city, but recognizing that we need to challenge the state to give more resources, because we've literally seen adjacent cities bring their unhoused to the city of Jackson and drop them off. So what we want to do is get an appropriate count. Every city gets what we call a point-in-time count of their homeless population, and that helps to secure federal funding for the programs that deal with homelessness. But it's not sufficient to really address the issue comprehensively. First of all, we understand that our homeless population is not a stagnant population, not only in terms of where they live from day to day, from one corner or the next, or one location to the next, but also there are people who are coming out of homelessness each and every day, and unfortunately people who are entering into the state of being unhoused every day. And so we need an accurate count to better address that challenge. And then once we get that accurate count, then we need to disaggregate that data so that we understand out of that population who is homeless for a lack of housing and who is homeless for a lack of services. People who may be dealing with addiction or mental health challenges, young people who have aged out of the system and are now in need of housing. If we simply take that portion of that population and provide a home to them, then more likely than not, we're not truly having the impact that we want to have. Because if someone is dealing with addiction and we have not done anything to address that challenge and we give them a home, then the likelihood that they will find themselves unhoused again is actually pretty great. And so we want to make sure that we're using the appropriate tool to address the challenge that we have.
Okay, so this goes more into the city and how the city is run. What would you say is the department, or which area of the city has the largest expenditures?
Well, Public Works. Yes. Public Works, because the things that they address, long-standing challenges are just, truly expensive. And so when people want to have their roads paved, and, they sometimes don't understand what it takes not only to resurface a street, but to reconstruct a street. And not all streets are made the same, right? Not all streets are created equally, is what I tell people. You have some streets that have older infrastructure underneath the road, pipes, and the like, and that needs to be dealt with. You have some roads that have sidewalks, and we have ADA compliance responsibilities that we have to address. And so Public Works is certainly the one that costs the most, followed by our public safety sectors, our fire and police department, which has a substantial workforce, and it costs a lot to not only pay, but to deliver them the tools that they need to do their jobs. And then lastly, I would say right below those three would be planning and development. We have a lot of people who work in code services. We have a neighborhood services division. We have our JTRAN services. All of that falls under planning and development. So there's a significant number of people within our workforce that work in planning and development as well.
And really quickly, I guess those raises, because when you're talking about expenditures, that's where your raises come with your fire department and your police department.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think we forget to champion is when we came in office, not only did we have a workforce that hadn't received a raise of any significance in more than a decade, we were balancing the city's budget on their backs. We were furloughing city employees. Getting to our earlier question of why run for 4 more years, we not only ended that furlough, showing more dignity in the work that our workforce does each and every day, but we've been able each year to give some level of raise to our workforce.
Okay, all right. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Ask Antar in just a few moments. So let's go back to trash. Mm-hmm. At one point we were talking about, the trash contract has been accepted. We're all good there. But we talked about providing trash cans free of charge to residents. Mm-hmm. And even my office received phone calls from residents who were looking for those trash cans. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, a part of the RFP process, and one of the things, the deliverables we wanted to provide to residents were trash cans, not only for the aesthetic appeal, the uniformity across the city, but we thought that it would aid in some of the challenges that we see across the city with litter across all corners of Jackson. And so we were looking to deliver that to residents. But as mayor, sometimes you have the option of a bad choice and a bad decision and a worse decision. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a bad decision that in the compromise, in order to secure a long-term garbage contract, that the council or some council members wanted to eliminate the garbage cans. But it would have been a worse decision to not have garbage collections for our residents. And so that's one of the things that we kind of relented on in the moment to ensure that we had the garbage collections. And so right now there is no garbage can to be provided to the residents. Overwhelmingly, we heard that residents wanted it. Even within the council member's ward, in his own ward meeting, the one who asked to take them out, his residents said, we want these cans. But he was determined, and we were concerned that we would not be able to get a garbage contract passed, and so we took that out of the current deal. Now, Mr. Richards, in his kindness and generosity, has said that, based on his other contracts that he has in other cities, that he has some cans available, that he's willing, not the full amount that would have been provided to each resident, but he has some cans available that he's willing to give for free to our residents. Now, what it says, because I know that there will be people who will say something and challenge me on this, they say the city of New Orleans on those. We talked about maybe getting some stickers that could be placed on those, because we love the fact that we live in Jackson. No slight to the city of New Orleans, but we're Jacksonians. And so they're willing, if you call them, to provide you that can. but because it wasn't a part of the contract, they're not able to take on the cost of delivering those to individuals, but they will make them available to people. And so we'll coordinate a time and a place for people to pick up those cans if they want them.
We got a question, someone was asking about budget season, and we are slowly moving to budget season, and they wanted to know, how does the administration prepare for the upcoming budget season?
Well, we meet with each department. We identify priorities. Sometimes we celebrate when we come in under budget, and that's not always a good thing.
Right.
You certainly don't want to go over budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always a good thing because you have to ask yourself the question, did you meet all of your priorities? And so we want to be a priority-based budgeting administration where we make sure we are funding the priorities of our residents. A budget is a moral document which should reflect the values of your community. Not only do we prepare by meeting with departments, we also prepare by having community discussions and talk about how we have a participatory budgeting process. I'd like to see more participation out of residents because it's our opportunity and our endeavor to make sure that we're no longer scratching where people may not be itching. Right. There may be programs that mean a lot to us and we think that they're helpful. But if it isn't changing people's quality of life, if it isn't assisting the residents in the way that they best need to be assisted, then we need to pivot to funding some other programs that do.
Okay. Any last thoughts that you want to share with residents?
Just always enjoy these segments and the questions that come in. I want to thank the student that submitted the questions. We're enjoying our time at this conference and learning a lot. But we look forward to coming home and look forward to more of these sessions and community conversations.
All right. Well, we are all out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you do have questions for the mayor, as you see, all you have to do is email them in. You can find the Ask Antar button on the city website. You can also send them in via social media, and you can also email them in to the mayor's office, and we will compile those questions and we'll bring them to, and tell them again how you don't know the questions beforehand.
I never know the questions,
yes.
And it's not because I have a problem with preparing, but sometimes I focus more on the response that I think of in my mind and repeating that,
right.
As opposed to just giving you a well-informed, sincere answer to whatever question you have.
All right, that's good. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.